Welcome to Reigniting You, where we talk all things career transition for those age 40 plus. I'm Lisa Downs, Seattle area career and retirement transition coach. Excited to be with all of you today. And as usual, our producer, Eric. Hey, Eric.
Hey, good afternoon, Lisa.
So we've made it through our first month together
We have.
already, and they haven't kicked us off the air yet. So
Of course
that's
not.
a good sign. So, yeah, pretty exciting. And with this being the second week of the month, it's time for our Ask Lisa episode where I'll be answering listeners' career transition questions as best I can. And we'll get started with that right after this first break.
Climbing the corporate ladder used to lead to success and a satisfying retirement. That ladder is now broken. You want to succeed today. Stop playing by yesterday's rules. 5 out of 6 millionaires started their own business. Now you can too. Introducing FranNet, your local franchise resource. With enough franchise options to fill CenturyLink Field, FranNet will help you find the right fit to realize your dream of being your own boss in a successful business. Be in business for yourself, not by yourself. Charlie McGee can help. Learn more at FranNet.com.
Hi, I'm Lisa Downs, career and retirement transition coach and host of Reigniting You on KKNW. I guide age 40 plus professionals to gain clarity, a renewed sense of purpose, and a career transition plan within 90 days so you can lead a fulfilling life regardless of your age. No longer does change have to mean riding off into the proverbial sunset. Let's talk about what your next phase of life can look like. Visit yournewaspect.com or call me at 425-216-3015. That's 425-216-3015. New Aspect Coaching. Fresh perspectives for your career.
Working hard to put a smile on your face. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Reigniting You, the show that focuses on all aspects of making mid to late career transitions. Many thanks to our sponsor, FranNet, your franchise experts. Eric, we've got some great questions from listeners again today.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so excited to get to those. And the first question is from Jennifer in Issaquah, and she asks, how do I use my age as a tool and not a hindrance in my career?
Ooh, that's $1 million question,
That is a
isn't it?
$1 million question. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's an excellent question. So thanks for sending that one in, Jennifer. And yep, so, there's a number of things to think about and to consider with this one. There's some good layers to kind of peel back here with this question. First recommendation is really to embody the confidence that you can succeed and really are the best fit for the opportunities that are in front of you. So, confidence is something that can ebb and flow, of course. And I always encourage people to, hearken to what are those times when, you really did something great that you are proud of, accomplishments that you've had, and really to look back on those and then think about, well, what is it that I did in those situations that really helped me and really gave me a great confidence boost? And then those types of behaviors are things that you can also transfer to new situations as well as share in terms of stories. So if you were interviewing with an organization or, putting yourself out there, networking with someone, really having those clear examples to tell can go a long way with that. And then also, sometimes we can also engage in self-sabotage. So it's pretty easy for us to go down this road where we self-deprecate, we put ourselves down, and we can engage in some sort of self-sabotage where we will say things like, well, I can't do that. I'm too old for that, or I can't do that because of my age. And when we do that, what we're doing is really perpetuating ageist stereotypes, even though we may not be consciously aware of it at the time. So, what is your self-talk? And is there anything in the self-talk that could also be self-sabotage? And, Yeah, it can often be helpful to really start with us first. So, what are we doing ourselves that could potentially be getting in our own way and putting up a roadblock, as opposed to immediately going to what other people are doing to us? So, how might you be putting up a roadblock or a hindrance or engaging in self talk that really translates to the self sabotage or reinforces ageism, even though we don't intend to do so? Because really, society stories about age and ability, that's pretty much hogwash, or my other technical term is poppycock. So, thinking about what are those examples of how you're great and, really hearkening to those. And as well as highlighting how your depth or breadth of experience is an asset when it comes to what you want to do or pursue, because that will only help organizations achieve their results and the outcomes they're looking for in the long run. And thinking again of those examples for how you can help with that, it really is about that story you tell, as I mentioned. So, how is your story tied to successful outcomes you've achieved in the past? And what does that look like? And it's kind of the classic when you think about answering interview questions. It's really the classic model of, well, here was the situation, here was the task or action I took, and here was the result or outcome. So, what are those stories that you can really get across effectively? And so, when you think about outcomes for the organization, how can you go about helping with that? So, is it through mentoring and training new leaders? Is it solving complex problems? Is it through recruiting new talent, supporting that? Is it through providing steady leadership, whether in the short term or long term? Is it through developing or streamlining new systems or processes? So, the more you can show a through line, kind of that golden thread between your experience and results and how you can hit the ground running, the better. And yeah, just watch the self talk, watch what you're saying, the phrases coming out of your mouth, and are any of those in any way some form of self sabotage or reinforcing those ageist stereotypes? So those are some recommendations for you for that piece. And thanks again for submitting that question. The next question is from Randy, all the way out in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So that's pretty cool, Eric. So someone, we've got a live stream fan or podcast fan or
That's right.
YouTube
Yeah.
fan out in North Carolina. Have you ever been to North Carolina?
I have,
Yeah.
and I was thinking recently, well, before the coronavirus thing hit, that I'd love to get back because the coast there is so beautiful there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd love to visit North Carolina again sometime. Beautiful place.
It is a beautiful place.
Yep.
I've got, well, my mom-in-law has lived in the Asheville area for many years, so we've gone back there to visit. And then I've got good dear friends in the Raleigh area. So fun, beautiful state out there in North Carolina. So Randy asks, why don't organizations get back to job applicants or respond when a job description is right up someone's alley? And that's another great question. It's like, oh, if only we could see behind that closed door, what's behind the magic curtain. Though it's frustrating, it's really impossible to know what's happening behind those closed doors unless you've got an in. So someone who who's got some sort of in with a hiring manager, with a recruiter, through some sort of contact who could maybe do a bit of investigating on your behalf. It's really tough to know otherwise. And often it's because of the volume of applications. So even pre COVID, kind of an average to think about, an average typical candidate pool, organizations could get anywhere from 500 to 1,000 or more online applicants for any given position. And that was before this virus situation with many folks losing their jobs. And of those, on average, about 50 or so tended to survive the applicant tracking system, that online system filter. Of those, maybe about 10 to 12 move on to phone screen phase. Of those, maybe 3 or 4 get interviews with the hiring manager and beyond. And also, in addition to keeping that in mind in terms of applicant pool, check that your resume is set up to be compatible with those applicant tracking systems. So, some tips for you there: make sure you don't have any critical information like your contact information in the header. So, put that in the main text of the resume instead. Use a plain text format or Word document format. Use common section headers, so, the typical ones like summary, experience, education, awards, etc., because those systems are designed to pick up content for those headers. And as much as you can, customize for keywords, even though it's a bit of a pain in the rear. If you customize for keywords as best you can. Of course, the best bet is to be referred by a contact who can get your information in front of a hiring manager or recruiter. Those who have an in with someone generally have a 10 times more success to be hired than just applying online. So, just some recommendations for you there. Sarah, how about you? What's been your experience? So, when you've gotten jobs over the course of your career, has it been where you've known someone, where you just applied, been a mix?
It's been a mix, and I got to say, I've actually essentially done the same gig for about 20 years, and it
Yeah.
started off as a part-time thing, and then grew and grew. But before that, my first job in radio was I was hired by a person that was a student with me in college.
Oh,
And then he got a job at a station, and then I submitted my stuff to him, and then he, decided to hire me. I don't know if it was because of the connection, but
yeah.
it was nice. So it was kind of a mix of the two things. But then when I left that gig, I just had to send out resumes like everybody else, and then luckily I had enough experience under my belt there that another station, this one, decided to bring me on.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Very cool.
if you know somebody, by all means, it's great to reach out. But if you don't, that shouldn't
Yeah,
deter
it
you, of
shouldn't
course.
deter you. Yeah, absolutely. I know for me, it's been a mix. And interestingly enough, when I worked in corporate, I actually got the corporate job. So you think about these humongous organizations
Hmm.
by just being a random schmo who applied online. And then it was only in the smaller organizations where I got roles because I knew someone, when you think it would be the opposite. So you never know. You never know.
You never do.
Yeah.
And what I've learned as someone that's actually had to do some hiring myself is that, there are guidelines that you have to follow.
Yep.
And, just because you know somebody doesn't mean that's an in. And you have to still follow all the steps of applying. You can't
Yeah.
just call and say, "Hey, you got an
Hey,
opening.
yeah.
I'm
Cool. I'm,
next
I'm
in
in.
line."
Yeah.
Yeah, you actually have to follow all the steps that everybody else would have to follow, and they may look fondly upon you because you have a personal connection, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be hired in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. So yeah, do what you can to get in front of those folks who are making those decisions, and at the same time, absolutely, know that you will need to follow that process, and you never know what's going to happen, so you might as well go for it. That's what I always say. You never know unless you try.
That's
So
right.
absolutely,
Got to be in it to win it.
got in it to win it. Risk it for the biscuit. That's right. Well, thanks, Eric. And thanks, Jennifer and Randy, for your excellent questions. And it's time now for our next break. When we come back, I'll field a couple more and preview what's coming up next week.
Are you feeling challenged or frustrated without a plan for what's next in your career and life? Are you seeing writings on the wall for needing to make a mid to late career change and don't know how or what to do? Coach Lisa Downs of New Aspect Coaching can guide you to what's next, providing a fresh perspective and supporting you to create a clear and compelling vision for your future and a plan to move forward. Call Lisa at 425-216-3015. That's 425-216-3015. New Aspect Coaching, fresh perspectives for your career.
I'm Nathan Munn. I'm the host of Tech Time Radio. Tech Time Radio is officially on KKNW from Saturdays from 4 to 5 p.m. You can listen to our show live. We are excited to also then rebroadcast our episodes on Thursday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. The hosts cover top tech stories with a funny spin.
That's good. So,
Hooked on Phonics worked for you, didn't it?
It did, just a little bit.
Grab your weekly technology without having to geek out.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We talk technology for the everyday common person.
Have a career transition related question or want to share your best or worst job story? Call 360-436-6496. That's 360-436-6496. Just leave a voicemail and we'll answer your question or share your story on a future show. Stay tuned for more Reigniting You with Lisa Downs.
Real people, real life, real radio. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Reigniting You, the show that discusses timely issues and topics about career transitions for Gen Xers and Boomers. I'm your host, Lisa Downs. We're continuing our episode focused on my answering listener questions called Ask Lisa, a regular feature the second week of each month, and I'm here with our producer, Eric. So, Eric, what resonated with you from those first couple of questions?
Well, just that they were great questions. Yeah.
Good ones. Yeah. And really appreciate that. And we'll talk a little bit later, too, about how to submit your questions that you might have for me that I can answer on a future show. And our next question is from a fellow Lisa in Seattle. So, great name. She shares that she's been struggling lately with staying motivated and positive these last few months after losing her job and nothing clicking for her. And how can I avoid getting too depressed? And yeah, that is not a fun situation, and so my heart goes out to you, Lisa, for that. And I know it's tough. Been there myself, and it's not an easy time. And also, it's easy to feel down and down on yourself and not have the confidence that you need, or just get in a funk, as you're going along, especially if the process is being dragged out in terms of your finding your next opportunity. So, watch any of that negative self-talk, so that script that's running in your head that's telling you what you can or can't do, why you're not being selected for roles. And I'm a fan of asking yourself a question. So getting curious and asking yourself a question to engage your brain in a way that's productive. So, that could be a question like, what's something I can do right now that could give me some forward momentum? Or who do I know who could broker an introduction for me? What's a free webinar or class I can take that can help me boost my skills? There are a number of great sites out there for that. So platforms like edX, Coursera, learnthat.com. There's one called Allison.com. So that's Allison with one L. Skillshare.com is another. Lots of free online courses and webinars you can take to boost skills. But set reasonable goals. So break things down into those smaller tasks so you've got some momentum. Of course, physical exercise is great just to get the blood pumping, clear our head, as well as joining online networking groups. So, is there a meetup group of interest that's around an interest or hobby? It doesn't necessarily have to be about your job search, but, putting you in a different environment with different people to meet. And then also making sure that you're digesting content that's positive. So, not engaging in doom scrolling, not getting wrapped up in today's, headlines, negative news, negative stories, or even, the people that you surround yourself with. So are there folks who have a tendency to perhaps have a more negative mindset or fixed mindset or outlook, where maybe you need to mix things up a little bit in terms of relationships that are in your life as well? So just a few tips there. What's something that you can get some good positive energy from that will engage your body, get your body moving, get those endorphins flowing, positive relationships, meeting new people, anything to help mix that up can really be helpful. That's my recommendation there. Next is a question from Paula in Tacoma, and she shares that she and her husband are both considering retiring at the same time after long careers. and she's concerned about how they'll not drive each other crazy, especially with continuing to be at home a lot with the virus situation. Only if they retire together and about this time with the COVID situation going on, only then not having online meetings and calls taking up their time, and asked, "What do you suggest?" So, my first recommendation would be to have an open conversation about it. So, it's important to do that and not just assume that things will just naturally, magically work out or fall into place. We tend to be overly optimistic sometimes that things will work out without us taking concrete, intentional steps to affect our outcomes when it ain't necessarily so. Also, I would recommend that you avoid just focusing on leaving your current job. So, what can you map out in terms of how you'll spend your time, those first 3 to 6 months, especially, that will help get you through the honeymoon phase of no work obligations and prevent you from going into any type of downward spiral once the honeymoon's over if you do get bored. And then another piece to consider is to use what some people call them the pillars of life, but basically it's all of our needs in terms of social, emotional, physical, intellectual, spiritual, occupational, to use those needs as a starting place. And then really talk through or think about, well, how are we going to get each of those needs satisfied? And even when you think about the occupational need, or because you won't be working current jobs, how else can you take your skills or strengths or what you did for an occupation and then transfer those into volunteer opportunities, working with the community, mentoring, whatever it looks like for you. But think about, how will we get each of these pillars met? It was interesting. I just attended coincidentally, yesterday afternoon, I attended a webinar on the future of aging from the University of Washington Retirement Association. And the speakers in that webinar really emphasized how critical it is to our longevity and our overall health to really answer for that social pillar of life, that social connection, and how that is just so critically important, even more so than taking steps for our health, like getting enough exercise, eating right, decreasing our stress. It's so key to have that social connection going on. And without that, that's where we can really see ourselves potentially plummet into some sort of downward spiral. But really have that intentional open conversation because, the last thing you want to do is really find yourself, sitting and staring at each other, of course, 24/7. And, there's this old joke that has been around a long time, especially amongst kind of my financial planner friends and accountant CPA friends. But it's an old joke that I married you for better or worse, not for lunch. I've heard that one frequently. But think about that. What are those activities and ways that you can keep yourself intellectually challenged and stimulated and answering for those other life pillars, especially that social piece? How about for you, Eric? What's something that you do that kind of helps you get out of those times when maybe you felt down or unmotivated? We all have that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, following creative endeavors, it helps, take my mind off of, employment stuff and helps me kind of, exercise my brain in a way that makes me happy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So for me, it's music. I work on music and, other creative endeavors. And so whatever your passion is that you like to do as, either a hobby or just, maybe you've monetized it, spending some time
Mhm.
and putting some energy into that can often relieve the tension, I think, of, the other commitments that you eventually have to deal with, but
Yeah.
so you take a little time for self-care, if you will, and I think that can be very helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, whatever it is that, you enjoy doing and sometimes, people will say, well, I may not have a lot of outside interests or,
Hmm.
I don't really know what that looks like. And I always encourage folks to, well, just take a look around, explore different avenues, whether, you read something and it triggers a thought, or, what do you see people doing in terms of how they're spending their time and their days, or organizations they may be involved in. And, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go whole hog on something. But what's a way you could perhaps, even dip a toe in the water,
Yeah.
check out different opportunities, or just, talk to folks and see, what are they doing both to keep themselves motivated, and then also for Paula, what are they doing in terms of, with this phase that they're in for their third age, or, retirement phase as well. But for me, I'm a big reader, so, I love to read. I'm a horrible athlete. I have the athletic ability of a brick.
Same.
But I enjoy watching sports, cheering people on, and then just, talking with friends virtually these days. But, hanging out with the spouse and the pets, and cooking, but it doesn't really matter what it is. It's just important to really, do those activities that you enjoy. So thanks, Eric. Thanks for that. And thank you, Lisa and Paula, for your questions. Hope
Great
this was
questions.
helpful. Great questions today. Keep them coming. If you do have a career transition question, send an email to reignitingyou@gmail.com, or call 360-436-6496 to leave a voicemail with your first name and location. You can use a pseudonym if you want. You don't have to use your real first name. And I'll ask the question over audio. That's 360-436-6496. I'll then share it live on the air the second week of December. So it's time for my reignition recommendation, a tip of the week to reignite your career and life. My suggestion for you today is to avoid comparing yourself to other people as much as possible, especially when you're in a state of transition, when you can be at your most vulnerable. Remember that you are you and no one else is you, and you are more than enough. It doesn't matter if you retire at the same age as someone else, keep working while people around you stop, or how your experience matches up to someone else. What matters is that you are healthy and happy, living according to your values and priorities, whatever that looks like for you, free of self-judgment and all the self-doubt. Well, thanks, Eric, for helping out with the show today. As always, hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
And we'll look forward to joining you next week as well. So join us next Wednesday, again at 3 o'clock Pacific time, when my guests will be Sue Mintz of Retirement Hood, as we talk about the benefits of non-financial aspects of retirement planning. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll talk to you next week on Reigniting You.